nobody talked about emotional stuff. We just stip up or lift our way through now.
Welcome to Finding Your Spark Again After a Loss. I am really excited that you guys are back and cannot wait for this incredible episode. Today, we're going to talk about clearing ancestral grief for coping with your grief. So this is an incredible topic. My guest today is Elizabeth Kipp, and she is a chronic pain specialist, yoga-informed addiction recovery coach, and an ancestral clearing practitioner. That's the thing, right? Yoga and meditation teacher and international best-selling author of The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. She focuses on helping people realize the power of their own inherent healing. Elizabeth has healed from over 40 years of chronic pain, including anxiety, panic attacks, and 32 years of addiction to prescribed opiate and benzodiazepine medication. She now works to help others achieve the same thing that she experienced directly from the work she teaches. In addition, Elizabeth offers one-to-one and group sessions in stress and chronic pain management and addiction recovery, ancestral clearing, trauma-informed yoga, and meditation. Find out more about Elizabeth on her website, of course, at elizabeth-kipp with 2 P's.com. Of course, the link is already in the description, so you can always go there. Elizabeth, it is so great to have you here with me today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Donalyn. It's great to be here.
I'm excited for this topic. This is a great topic because I think a lot of times when we're in grief, we don't understand that there's more to it, right? So tell me, how does that all fit together?
Well, the grief experience is personal, but here's the thing. We live in 3 different worlds, you might say. We live in the personal, the things that happen to me. We live in the current community of like on the planet, the world. We live in space and time in that world. So we're being influenced by all 3 of those at once. It's really in the quantum physicists have really pinpointed that for us. And when we work in the present moment, we clear the field all around us in the present moment, the past and the future all at once. And we're working with, or when we do things and then we work in the present moment, we're affecting our personal space and but the whole world, because it's all one connection, right? But it also is through time. And how does that work? So imagine the egg that was you and the egg that was me. It lived in our mother and our grandmother before it became us. And the egg that lived in
Like, you mean like the little atoms?
The egg, the actual egg, before it ripened and became me and became you, it lived in our mother, but it lived in her mother first. And so our grandmother, she lived in her grandmother. As far as like the egg and the vibrational energy there, it comes down, everything comes down through the lineage. The experiences we have comes in as information. There's the DNA, which is kind of the backbone of like the hardware in your computer. It's the hardware. The epigenetics, the things that happen to us, the environment that shapes us, that's the software. That's the programs we're running. So depending on what program, what experiences people had, just the egg alone, we're not even talking about the sperm, we're talking about the egg, which just that piece, that travels down. And we also, of course, we experience cultural patterns and behaviors that come down through time. And certainly I experienced them coming through my family.
Yeah.
Right? This is the way we do life. We do it like this. Don't say that. Say this. We do it like this. We say it like this. This is how we do things. That. So,
Yeah, and we're always modeling, aren't we?
oh
I
yeah,
mean, and our families are always modeling for us. My late husband died not long ago, and I never ever thought that watching my mother go through the loss of my father was going to be a model for me, but in fact, it was. It was a way for me to say, okay, somebody else has done this, and this is how they did it. It's at least a starting point. You can always make decisions that are nuanced, that are different from that, but you do end up with a model, and you have to live with that in some way, right? You have to say, yes, I want that model, or no, I'm going to make some changes to that model.
that's
So
true.
that's a really interesting thing about ancestry. In fact,
As long as we're aware of it.
yeah, that's right. The awareness is the key. I find that that's actually, now that I think about it, also true of my grandmother and my grandfather. Like, I watched them. I was old enough to have awareness to watch my grandfather go through the loss of his wife to Alzheimer's, right? My grandmother to Alzheimer's, and then to watch her become cognizant of his loss when he left the planet. So those are all just different ways that we can see grief playing out, and there's so many physical symptoms to grief. I had no idea until I was walking through it in this very amped up way, right? I mean, when my father died, of course I had grief, but when my husband passed away, it was a whole other level of physicality for me. So, can you tell us a little bit about how the ancestral piece plays out in our energy systems and our bodies? Like, how does that happen? And how would we know?
Well, I'd like to speak to a couple of points. One is the modeling. Well, it turns out we have, because I have a foot in the science world, and I really like to, I love the woo woo, but I like the grounding in the science. At least for me, it's kind of a tether. And we have mirror neurons, and we mirror each other. We come in with them, and that's how we learn how to get along. It's how we learn how to connect. It's fundamental. And so in the grief experience, when we watch other people grieve, it's happening on a very primal level, those behaviors. And so it was very confusing to me. My family, just as an example, the way we did it was nobody talked about emotional stuff. We just step up or lift our way through. Now, they grew up in the Depression, and their parents had to, keep them alive during the Depression, the Great Depression. They were in the First World War. Then my parents were in the Second World War. And all those, my lineage going back, we're just trying to survive right the moment. And it was almost like there wasn't any time for emotion, or we didn't do that because we were busy doing other things, whatever the reason, right? For me, the grief experience, the way I saw it, the way it was modeled to me, was we're just very serious, but nobody says anything. We just go through the motions, and then we go home, and we drink alcohol or whatever, right? That's kind of the way it was done, and we don't talk about it to each other. So it was very confusing for me. So that's one thing. So the modeling is important. The awareness that we're modeling is another piece. Now, the thing that's interesting is you said something else, which I think is really important. You said you had one grief experience, and then you had another one that was much bigger, right? And I had something like that. And there's another thing that we've noticed in the brain is that there's a kind of an understanding that neurons that wire together fire together. So if we've had a grief experience and another grief experience and the next grief experience we had, they all wire together in the brain. So the next grief experience, the whole network's going to go off. So anything you have that's unresolved around the other griefs, they're going to come out, boom, right here. So that's in our lifetime, right? Ancestral clearing looks at both the past in this lifetime and in other lifetimes, right? So just a little bit of fill in around the couple things that you said. Ancestral clearing also looks at grief experiences that we came in with that were unresolved. So, for instance, how many of you listeners do you think, of the listeners that will hear this, had women in their lineage who were wives whose husbands were sailors or sons were sailors, and they sailed off to, wherever they sailed off to on an adventure, exploring or whatever, or on a war maybe, and never came back? And how many of the of us of our ancestors stood watch for them, right, waiting for them to come back? That right there, longing, if it remains a thing, it gets passed down into the next lineage.
That's interesting, because I can also imagine that would have happened also with husbands and children who went off to war, right? So
That's
often you didn't get an answer about what happened to your loved
right.
one.
They just went away, and we never knew what happened.
Right,
And that
exactly. And they said, okay, now they're gone.
now,
You're like,
what if
what
they were
happened?
pregnant? What if the woman, the mother or the wife, were pregnant?
Yeah.
What do you think that the developing baby is feeling? Everything the mother feels.